Hello, everybody. This is Mahadeva, the Thunder Wizard. I'm going to continue talking about the heart chakra today. And specifically, we're going to start talking about the relationship of the fire element to the heart chakra, to the heart center. If you didn't watch what we talked about yesterday, please go back and watch it so that you can understand the distinction between the different energy centers that are intertwined and sitting on top of each other in the heart. And what I'm going to talk to you about today is how the fire element is crucial. Understanding the fire element, working with the fire element is absolutely crucial to your ability to connect with your soul, connect with other beings, other entities, connect with other people, connect with your evolution. Fire is a purifier. It purifies your ability to evolve. It purifies your identity. So without a healthy heart center, you don't have an identity. If you don't have an identity, the heart center is going to be there's going to be some problems there. If you don't have an identity, you're going to have difficulty making use of the fire element in a positive way. And fire is what purifies the life force energy in the body. Specifically in the heart center, what we're really wanting to focus on is purifying your identity and your human identity, merging it with the soul. The fire element is not active in that, and if you're not knowing how to interface with it, then there's going to be some challenges for you. So let's see if I can find it here. My element, my little chart with all the elements and the elements, how the elements work together. Sorry, I should have had this ready before I came on. I sure gave myself plenty of time. Okay, let's see. 5 elements. Nope, that's not it. If not, I'll just have to talk you through it. But we have 5 elements that we use in this practice here. In this practice here, we use a progression that I call the purifying. You can call it the evolutionary. You can call it also the warrior progression. But before we talk about that, let's talk about the healing progression, which is what you're going to find in just about every Qigong practice out there. So whenever you take any Qigong course or learn Qigong from somebody and they use the 5 elements, they're going to use the healing progression, which is wood, fire, earth, metal, water. And so what this does is it uses one element to build upon another. There's the element cycle. There we go. Okay, so let's bring that up to the front there. So there we go. All right, so the element cycle there. All right, so normally, by the way, this is the south, so don't use this as a direction because the Chinese flip the directions. So they put south at the top and north at the bottom. I won't get into the reasons why they do that, but it doesn't matter. So up here in the north, you have fire. So I've put these arrows in there. Don't look at that right now. So you go in a clockwise fashion, or actually in this case you would go counterclockwise. So fire creates wood, which means that fire burns the wood. sorry, we start, and forget what I just said. Forget what I just said there, sorry. We're going counterclockwise from the east. And so wood is what starts everything, and wood creates fire. Fire, wood, fire, fire creates earth. You don't see, I'm acting like for some reason that you can see my cursor, which is, you can't. But wood creates fire, fire creates earth, earth creates metal, metal creates water, and then it starts all over again. So this is the elements empowering the other elements, and this is used in most, if not all, Qigong practices in order to, for healing. So when you want to gain balance in the 5 organs, you want to gain balance in the body, you want to gain balance with the emotions, then you do that in this progression. And I teach that here. So I think that's the first thing that I teach, is how to do that. So fire is incredibly important. So in terms of emotions, wood represents the emotions associated with identity, yourself. Wood is expansive energy, and it is the ether element. So the ether represents the purest identity that has not manifested in reality. In mythology, both in the Chinese and in the European, the East, which is where the ether or the wood is the realm of the sun, because the rising sun comes up in the east. The sun represents the soul, but it also represents one's identity, your kingship over yourself. Now, if you are not a king or a queen of your own domain, if you're not a king or queen of your own domain, then you are going to have problems in this life. And this is, by the way, one of the main problems with mental illnesses, mental disorders, is that there's some issue with either the identity, or the identity is, in the case of narcissists, there is no identity. By the way, you think narcissists have too big of an ego? It's the opposite. They don't have an ego. And because they don't have an ego, they overcompensate by creating a false, perfect ego. It's incredibly infantile. I don't mean immature, I mean infantile. It's an infantile response to not being loved, seen, or heard, or abused, neglect. In order to survive the neglect, the infant invents the replacement of the parent, which doesn't exist. The parent normally, the mother in this case, normally acts like a god. So an infant worships their mother. They see the mother as God. And so when the mother is non-existent or is otherwise incapable of doing her job, then in order to survive the horrific hell of not being seen and nurtured, the infant creates a false god, which is themselves. So they create a false identity of themselves in a fantasy world. But in that fantasy world, because the infant doesn't know reality and hasn't been taught what reality is, it creates this tyrannical, perfect, godlike image of itself. And so when you see narcissists, Donald Trump, in the world who constantly talk about everything that they do, and they're perfect at this, and they're a brilliant, genius at that, and they can do no wrong, it's because they have no identity to fall back on. So the East has to do with an identity. That's why Thor is in the East fighting off the giants, because the giants represent narcissistic, false expansion of the ego. That's why the giants are narcissists. They don't take your feelings into consideration. They have no empathy because they don't have an ego. In order to have empathy, you have to have a self. You have to know what it's like to be somebody and to say, I know how I feel, and if that person is anything like me, they're going to feel like this and that, so I'm going to treat them like this because I wouldn't want that. But if you don't have an ego, you don't see people. People are, your external world is simply a projection of your internal fantasy. And so nobody's real. And so you don't have any feelings for anybody else, and everybody is here to benefit you. They're just objects. So that's what giants represent. And Thor represents the defense of the true self. And so that's why he's always off in the east fighting the giants. He's fighting off narcissism. So this is the wood element. And if the wood element is strong and healthy within you, you will have an expansive nature. You will simultaneously have love and respect for yourself and your boundaries, and you will simultaneously respect and love other people, and you will have empathy for them. And this is when the wood is powerful. So this is why everything starts with the wood. So in order to gain some healing from that, the wood feeds the fire. So the fire represents the purification and the evolution of the self. So fire represents passion. So this is the wood, the ego, really impassioned and empowered. And so this is why we associate passion with, artists and warriors and, moguls of business. We find these people to have a lot of fire, a lot of passion, because it's their ego, their true identity, seeking to establish itself in the world. And the fire, the lesson of the fire, is learning how to evolve from a childish ego wrapped up with self and narcissism, and having that evolve to the pure fire of the soul, which says, oh, it's not about me, it's about us. So wood empowers fire. Fire then empowers the earth. In the example is that the wood is burned and creates ashes, and the ashes fall into the earth, and it creates nutrients for more growth. So wood, fire, earth, and then those same minerals that are in the ash are further condensed under the gravity of the earth, and they turn into metal. And then metal, you go deeper beyond the metal and you find the water table underneath. And then the water table, without water, water nourishes the nutrients and the seeds, and then the wood comes up again and it starts all over. So that's the healing cycle. And so here we have fire becoming important in the healing cycle, and it's purifying and allowing the ego to establish itself and to act in the world. And then the rest of it is, you see it coming into balance. So the earth balances the fire, because if you're too passionate, you can burn yourself out. If you're too wrapped up in yourself, then you become a destructive tyrant. So the earth needs to ground you. And then from the grounding, you get the metal, which is perception. Then you get true perception. You can see things 20/20. You can see people for who they are, things for what they are. And then the water brings the nourishment. And then from that, you can create life again within yourself. So that is the healing progression. But in the Mao Shan here, we don't use that progression. We use the warrior progression, the purifying, however you want to look at it. And it's listed another way when you're dealing with healing, but when you're dealing with spiritual warfare and martial arts, the control cycle, which is what it's called, it's really not accurate. It's not controlling, it's purifying. The warrior cycle purifies the elements. In the healing cycle, wood, fire, earth, metal, water, what's happening is that you are creating and healing and growing. But it doesn't bring necessarily wisdom. It brings healing and health and expansion of the self, but it doesn't bring evolution. So to evolve, then you go to what's called the controlling cycle, which in the martial tradition comes out differently than what you've seen it listed. So don't get confused. I got confused for years, but don't let this confuse you. Don't look up element progressions in traditional Chinese medicine, because you'll get confused, because you go, oh no, Mahadeva said it was wood, metal, fire, water, earth, but that's over here it's calling it the insulting and then the controlling. Just trust me, this is the controlling cycle as it's manifested in spiritual warfare and martial arts. So for that, we follow the arrows that I have here. So starting with the wood again in the east, same thing. Wood is ether. So here we have the elements going from most or least dense to most dense, meaning that this is how the elements or energy, these are the 5 phases that energy manifests to create physical reality. And so we start off with the least dense, which is ether. Ether is spirit. So it's energy. So even your spirit is made up of energy. It exists. It's a thing. But you can't grab onto it. There's nothing, it hasn't been physicalized yet. So this is, everything comes into manifestation this way. Then from ether comes metal. So ether is expansion, and so the reaction to expansion is contraction. Ether is breath. You inhale, your body expands. Can't keep expanding, you'll explode. So in order to balance, you must exhale. And you contract. And then from metal comes fire. Fire is rising. And if something rises, if a balloon rises, at some point it's going to pop and then it comes crashing down. So when something rises, it eventually falls. So the opposite of rising is falling. The opposite of fire is water. And then earth condenses everything again. And then to overcome the power of bringing things together, the wood breaks through the earth and overcomes the earth. And this is the cycle. So this purifies the self, this process. So this is why eventually when you're doing this stuff over here, if you really want to focus on spiritual evolution, then you're going to go and do this process here that we do at this link. But I also teach you how to do it up here. Wood, metal, fire, water, earth. And here the self goes through a process of purification. So the most important transitional element in all of this is fire. Fire is in the middle of it. You have wood, metal, fire, water, earth. So in this representation, you have fire becoming the focal point. Everything is revolving around the fire. The wood and the metal are setting up the fire to explode, and then the fire is doing a huge amount of purification, and then that purification has to be brought back. If we're dealing with metal, because a lot of times this process is likened to the purification of gold. So what you want to end up with is you want to end up with the purest gold possible, and so for that to happen, it must go through a purification. And you have to get rid of that which is the impurities out of the gold. And so the fire is the most important thing for that. Specifically, the fire has everything to do with the heart center. So again, don't get confused. If you look at the chakra elements, it's going to be different. Don't get confused by these different things. When it comes to the heart center, the fire that we are concerned with is the feminine power of fire in the heart. When you work with this feminine aspect of the fire within the heart, you will heal from psychological wounds. This is unavoidable. So you cannot become a spirit fighter if you aren't somebody who lives from the heart. Now, I am no different than a lot of people out there, and this was a real challenge for me. Because I got into this, not because I was looking to be a more loving, kind, sweet, evolved person. I got involved in this practice here because I wanted power. I wanted to be invincible. The last thing I wanted to do was tap into my heart, because that to me felt like weakness and vulnerability. I wasn't afraid of that. I mean, I was an actor and all that, so I could tap into all that and the emotions. But in terms of why I was doing this, I was doing it for power. I was not doing it for spiritual reasons. But, this is how the universe works. The universe will provide you with a method. It will feed your ego, but you will end up getting where the universe wants you to go, which is to operate from your soul. And you will come to the conclusion that eventually you will find that the most important thing in the universe is love. There's nothing beyond that. I don't mean the syrupy, codependent, ass-kissing type of everything is love and light. I'm not talking about that at all. As you can tell, I mean, I have a very, my idea of love is tough love. That's how I work. Because, when it comes to the delusion that humans naturally have, which is to avoid and run and minimize, the only thing that can help, in many cases, help people wake up is tough love. I have a short amount of time if I'm dealing with you, especially on the chat, and so I'm gonna give you the harsh reality, and it's up to you to take it or not take it. I can't make you do the work. I can't make you face yourself. I can do what I can to wake you up to the serious consequences that you're facing, and if you want to heal, then you got to get out of. You got to be willing to be uncomfortable. So one of the things that happens when we work with this fire element in the heart is that we are willing to look at our discomfort. We're willing to be uncomfortable. I'm not saying it's a good idea. I'm not saying that, it is a good idea, but I'm not saying that it's something that you're going to like. And the first thing is you shouldn't judge yourself for whatever reason you're here. If you're here because you want to escape your pain, that is a perfectly valid reason for being here on this channel and doing any of this stuff. It's a perfectly good reason. But ultimately it doesn't matter, because whatever brought you here is not what's going to keep you here. The other thing that the universe does is it will motivate you to do things you don't want to do. There will be some kind of carrot. There will be some payoff. There will be some benefit. So let's say somebody gets here because they want to avoid their pain. They want to avoid their anxiety. They want to avoid sadness. They want to avoid their anger, whatever it is that they don't want to feel. They come to me because they think, oh, this spirituality, I can be happy. You got some happy pill for me? Well, I do. If you do this stuff, you will very likely feel physically, you'll feel a really wonderful energy. You may feel other wonderful feelings like joy and happiness and power. You may, like I did, feel intense, good things that make you feel good. You might find exactly what you're looking for. And that's really just the, that's just the door prize. That's the raffle. They get you in the building by, a raffle, and then once you're here, then they're going to sell you something. So what gets you in the door is whatever it is you're looking for: power, happiness, peace, love, freedom from anger. I don't know what it is that you're trying to escape from, or what it is that you want that you think you don't have. You'll get it. And then the universe will say, now, this feels good. You like this? Good. Now, in order to keep this, we're going to have to do some psychological surgery on you. You're going to have to go through some process of evolution. You're going to have to go through, as I don't have him here today, but Dr. Manhattan. You're going to have to go through a Dr. Manhattan experience. And so the quicker that you can come to accept that, the better off you're going to be. Fire, in this case, is incredibly healing. So this is one of the things, that the misunderstandings of how healing fire is. When you get an illness, what's one of the first things that happens? You get a fever. You can get a very high fever. But the fever is your body working to purify itself from the invasion. So the fire, when the fire is working, it's a good sign. The fire in the heart is necessary for you to connect. So now let's talk about anger. Obviously, fire and anger go together. The planet of the fire element is Mars. In fact, the word anger means to burn. It literally means to smolder. So that's what the word anger means in the original Proto-Indo-European. It means somebody who's smoldering. And it's not like a flame. It's this smoldering, when the fire is really hot and there's these red hot coals in it. And if you look at it, these little blue flames, as you know, blue is hotter than regular red, orange fire. The blue is really hot. You see these, all of a sudden it'll burst into a little blue flame. This is anger. You're smoldering. So we seek to avoid our anger, understandably, because when fire explodes, it's very destructive. It's destructive to the self. It's destructive to other people. When we explode with anger towards other people, it very rarely comes out well. So we understandably try to avoid this. But if you're going to heal, you must become conscious of your rage and your anger. If you lived a perfect childhood and your parents taught you how to individuate, then you're not going to be an angry person. You'll feel anger, your anger will come up, and you will then solve whatever the threat is, because that's really what anger is doing. Anger is trying to deal with a threat. Once the threat is gone, the anger dissipates, the fire goes away. But that's not the case for many people. Many people are angry, they smolder. And so in order to fit in, people do one of two things. They can hide behind that anger. That certainly was what I did when I was younger. There was a point in my life where, and I kid you not, there was a point in my life where when I walked down the street, literally people would just part and just get out of my way. It wasn't because there was anything, I wasn't, probably weighed 165 pounds. I wasn't a big guy. I looked a lot different than I do now. I was actually a very different looking person. So it wasn't that I looked big and mean and scary. It was just that there was so much anger within me. I was so rageful. I was just smoldering with rage that just walking down the street, people would just get the hell out of my way. If I went into a Kmart or something like that, the security guard would follow me around because they just thought I was up to no good. Was really, people would constantly give me looks. I scared the hell out of everybody. So I was so full of rage. But that rage was hiding, it was masking deep wounds. Underneath that rage was deep sadness, deep pain, because of all the stuff that I lived through as a kid. So anger for some people is very, there are people who use their anger to hide from the rest of the world. It's a gateway emotion. It's there trying to protect you. So that's one end of the pendulum. The other end of the pendulum is people who are also filled with rage, but they hide from it. They don't want to feel it. They try and escape their feelings of anger. They stuff it down. They're filled with shame about all the anger that they have. This is the everything is love and light. These people are filled with shame about their anger. People who smoke a lot of weed. Those of you weed smokers out there, you think you're spiritual? I know for a fact you are full of rage. And you feel spiritual when you smoke weed because the weed pushes the anger down. And you think that's peace. You think that's meditation. You think that's spirituality. And it's not. And anybody who knows, if you hang out with a pothead, at some point that pothead is going to explode and they're going to rage on you. They're the most, rageful, passive-aggressive, intellectually, they get so stuck in their heads they can walk up and, just passive-aggressively chop you to pieces. They'll go, hey man, So this is the opposite, is people stuffing their anger down. So when you work with the heart center, you have to be willing to deal with whatever underlying emotions are there. And one of the first emotions that is going to come up is anger. And if you're not able to deal with your anger, to face your anger, then your anger will smolder somewhere else. Have you ever noticed that when you have an injury, the skin becomes hot to the touch, it becomes red. If somebody has tendonitis, the joints will be hot to the touch. They will be red. There will be inflammation. Inflammation is anger. And people in, quote, more primitive societies will say, oh, that's angry. When the wound gets infected, they go, ooh, it's angry. And it's true. It's again, fire is trying to purify. And so if you have an actual infection, then the body goes and it sends fire to try and purify it. But if you don't have an infection, then there's all kinds of diseases that are out there that is really just the manifestation of unresolved anger. People, if you've noticed, people who don't deal with their anger, they end up having heart problems, they end up having blood pressure problems, they end up having all kinds of other tendonitis, they have all kinds of aches and pains all over their body. This is the anger trying to manifest itself because you're not dealing with it. So when we work with the fire element, my suggestion is to seek the underlying. First, you have to allow yourself to have the anger. You can't tell yourself you don't have anger. There's nothing spiritual about not being angry. Of course, we don't people who act out on their anger, or like me, people who feed themselves with their anger, because I did. My anger fueled me. There was a reason why I listened to speed metal and thrash and punk. There's a reason I listened to it, because it fueled me. But at some point, you have to allow the anger to tell you what the real issue is. Yesterday, somebody asked a great question about one of my books, which I recommend. I think it's my actual first book. And it's called Wealth Shaman. You can find it on my You can find it in my books on Amazon, courses.thunderwizard.com, michaelwilliamdenny.com. You can find my books. In that book, I teach you how to shamanically interact and communicate with all the things in your world, including your poverty. You can talk to your poverty, you can talk to your illness, you can talk to your anger, you can talk to anything within you, or if it's in your external life, you can talk to it. Because what will happen is if you're, for instance, in that book, I talk about your poverty. So if you're struggling and you're poor and you can't make any money, then there's a way to do a shamanic practice where you go into a meditative state and you call your guides, angels, whatever, and then you put a chair in the middle of it and you call forth your poverty. And however it manifests, and lots of times your poverty will manifest as this angry ball of spiky, some people will see it that way. It's angry, it sits there and it growls. It's angry about something. It means that there's something that it feels threatened by. There's something that it wants to achieve that it's not allowed to accomplish. That's another thing that happens when we want to do something and we're prevented from it. One of the first things we do is we get angry. Hey, I want to go surfing today and you won't let me. That makes me mad. So your poverty is trying to accomplish something. So you ask it in that meditation, you say, what is it that you want? Now, your first thought is going to be, I'm not going to talk to my poverty because it wants to hurt me. It wants to make me poor. But that you'll find that the opposite is what happens. When you talk to your poverty, this angry ball of poverty, and you say, what is it that you want? It'll say, I want you to go surfing. I want you to become a ballerina. I want you to start playing music. I want, it'll tell you to do something that seems totally opposite from what you think this thing is trying to do. You think this thing is trying to hurt you. And then what happens is that poverty, once it's allowed to share its true desire, that anger disappears and it turns into your prosperity. Because it's angry because you're not doing what it wants. And what it wants is to make you prosperous. So anger can serve a tremendous function, but you have to let it communicate with you. Now, if you've been, for instance, if you've grown up in, and if you're watching my channel, there's a good chance that you have. If you've grown up in a dysfunctional home where you weren't allowed to truly individuate, people were probably telling you not to do this and not to do that and not be like this. And, you might have been laughed at. You might have told somebody, like with me, I told my parents I wanted to be an actor and, they tried to talk me out of that. I didn't feel encouraged by that. I mean, they ended up, being supportive, but I didn't feel that. And I never really felt like they really supported, I could give you instances where they were really unsupportive. So you're going to have some shame around what it is that you want to do. That's going to create anger. You're going to have shame about being angry because you've probably, if you haven't individuated, if your parents didn't help you to individuate as an infant and a child, you were probably shamed out of all of your negative feelings. So if you're one of those people, you don't like being around angry people. You don't like being around people who are sad. Pick your emotion. You don't like people who feel like this or feel like that. It's probably because you were shamed out of having those feelings. And your desire to have people not feel a certain way is the way that is your projection of how you deal with yourself. You tell yourself, don't be angry. Angry people aren't spiritual. Don't be sad. Sad people are weak. Don't feel vulnerable. Don't feel love. When I was a kid, men did not touch each other. It's just, if we went to go, if I had a friend and, we were going to go hug each other, it would have been this weird sort of pat each other on the back like that and break away as quickly as possible. The idea of grabbing a friend and hugging them, watching like people from France and Italy doing this weird kissing each other on the cheek and holding hands, and people in the Middle East, two men walk down the street holding hands. As to what the hell is that all about? So however your judgment on other people shows you how you talk to yourself. So the fire is here to burn through all of that garbage. And if you do this work here, what's going to happen is that you're going to feel you're gonna feel whatever emotion you're trying to avoid. And so you have to be willing to go through that. The fire connects you. The fire is, we're talking about the negative aspects of fire. Anger, rage, these are obviously destructive, but in their natural place, they're extremely healing. Anger tells you what needs to get fixed. So if you've been shamed out of your anger, you're not going to know how to solve your problems. So one of the reasons that you can't solve your problems is because either you're not allowing yourself to have the anger, or like me, you are just continuously acting out through anger. But anger is there to transform. And it's meant to be a short-lived emotion that lasts for as long as the problem lasts. And once you've solved the problem, the anger dissipates. It's meant to be a flash and then go away. So you have to be able to be willing to feel what it is you don't want to feel. And if you do this work here, what's going to happen is you will be given. It's sort of like when you go to the doctors to get some procedure done, they'll give you some kind of medication to make you feel good. I remember when I went and had some pretty major surgery for a kidney stone, and as they gave me some, I don't know what they gave me. They gave me something. And then once they gave me the pill, it was to get rid of my anxiety. Then the doctor walked in and he had this whiteboard and he started talking about, yeah, we're going to slice you open here and we're going to do this. And I was so high, I was like, yeah, man, that sounds pretty good. I didn't care, yeah, do whatever the hell you want. Chop my head off, sew my feet to my hands. I don't care. So when you do this, you're going to be given that. You're going to be given, the energy is going to give you this feeling of being able to tolerate what's going to happen. What's going to come is we're going to do some serious psychological surgery. Now, not everybody's going to have the same experience. Some people are going to have more of a transformative experience than others, but it doesn't matter. The end result is to get to the same end, which is, to have that experience of enlightenment. So understand that anger is here to connect you. So another question you can ask yourself is when you're feeling angry, you say, what is it that I want to connect with that I'm not getting to connect with right now? What's the first thing that happens when somebody's in love with somebody else and they get rejected? What's the first thing that happens? They get angry. They get angry if your wife cheats on you. Your first response is to get homicidally rageful. It's because that anger really wants to connect you. It's a desire to connect that's being thwarted. The fire, when it's love, we talk about love as being a fire, a passion. We see the heart as red. There's fire in that. The blood, the heat, the warmth, the passion. It's seeking to connect. The opposite of love is not hate. The opposite of love is apathy, no feeling. Apathy means you don't have any feelings. So this is, narcissist has learned how to do the opposite of love. They've killed any any empathy they might have towards somebody else. It's a defense mechanism, and they're not angry. They don't hate. They just don't have any feeling. You're just an object, and I'm here to get what I want, and you're in the way. Or you're here to give me whatever it is I want, and that's it. What happens to you after that, I don't care. Out of sight, out of mind. You don't exist if you not here to serve a need. That's apathy. That's why we watch movies about Hannibal Lecter, because Hannibal Lecter, even though the character of Hannibal Lecter is not a narcissist, narcissists are not noble. Hannibal Lecter is the actual fantasy that we have, that we want to be. We're full of empathy if we're not a narcissist. And so we create what we think is going to be this diabolical narcissist, but he only eats bad people and he protects the good ones. It's total fantasy. Narcissists could care less. They don't have any empathy for anybody. They don't have any morals or any values because they have no real love. They don't have any love. So the opposite of love is not hate. If you hate somebody, you must first had to love them. This is why people who are racists are, when I hear racist talk, what I see is I see a little kid who wants to cry because the other kids don't want to play with him. He's going to take his ball and he's going to go home. That's why they only focus on certain races, certain religions, because they're afraid that those people aren't going to love them. Now, this is happening on an unconscious level. On an unconscious level, what they want is for those people of those races to love them. So they can't tolerate that thought of being so vulnerable that they need somebody else's love and approval. So instead, they cover it over with this racial hatred, which means it's a desperate cry for, please love me. I want to play with you. I want you to be my friend. They can't tolerate that thought. They shame themselves out of it, and so they then cover it over with hate, which is just the opposite, the flip side of love. It's that you can't separate them. You must first love somebody before you hate them. Well, when we talk about, crimes of passion, what is that? Something about the woman scorn. Be deathly afraid of a woman scorn. If you break up with a woman, you cheat on her, you better run, because her anger is going to be worse than anything. You definitely don't want a woman mad at you. I would much rather walk into a room with an angry man than an angry woman. They're ruthless. They'll slice your nuts off and put it in your mouth and tell you to chew. But it's because they love you. They love you so much that turns into this homicidal rage. All right? So your anger is trying to connect you. Your passion, if your fire is not angry, then it's passion. Your passion wants to connect you. Your love wants to connect you. Wants to connect you to the world, to the elements, to the gods, to other people, to your own soul. So the fire element is absolutely crucial. Without it, we can't function. So coming up in the next installment, of the Mao Shan 5 elements is going to be the fire. So over the next week or so, I'm going to go ahead and upload that. So right now we've got wood and we have metal. So in case you don't know what I'm talking about, let's bring that up. Where is the... Let's see if I can find it here. Where's the spirit fighting? Okay, it's up here somewhere. Here it is. So this is what we're talking about. So that's metal right there, and that's fire. So you can see the fire is very dynamic. So that's what's coming next. Of course, I'm going to give it to you in a much slowed down version so that you can learn it. But that's the fire. Okay, now we're actually now into all the other elements here, but you only saw fire there for a second. So the fire element is going to really, you're going to really feel a connection to the lightning power of the heart. Each one of the, so let's break this down again for those who are unfamiliar with it. So the Mao Shan energy is an energy of the heart. And it's the power itself is, the name of it, which I give to you on the 90-day, the Warrior Lightning Qigong. I tell you what the secret name of the sect is, but in that name, it tells you that the focus of this path is in the heart. So this is the gateway to the most powerful energy in the universe. These guys, the Mao Shan guys, were considered to be by all of the other Taoists. So all of the other Taoist schools and mountains, they considered the Mao Shan to be the most powerful. So much so that nowadays the word Mao Shan is associated with sorcery and black magic. And there are people who are black magicians, who are lower level folk magicians who have taken the name Mao Shan. They really aren't the true Mao Shan, but they are folk magicians. But that reputation came about because the power of these guys was incomprehensible to the other Taoist masters. We're talking about other Taoist masters that can leave their body and float and, bilocate and do all kinds of crazy things. Even they looked at the Mao Shan with incredulity. They couldn't believe what they were seeing or hearing or experiencing. So whenever there was a real problem, and this was like if you were on the Hua Shan mountain, for example, very famous Taoist mountain back in the day, or the Wudang Shan mountain, which is associated with martial arts, very powerful, magical mountain. When they had something they couldn't handle, they would send an emissary to the Mao Shan mountain and say, hey, can you guys come and help us with this? The Mao Shan guy would come and do whatever they couldn't do, usually fighting away a demon, negativity, something like that. And then they would go back into their mountain, and as soon as they were out of sight, then they'd start bad-mouthing the Mao Shan and say, yeah, those guys are evil, they're sorcerers, you got to stay away from them. And the reason is because the power that they had access to was beyond what they could handle. And most people stayed away from it. Two reasons. One is that this kind of energy will drive away people who are not seeking true enlightenment. And so most of these Taoist mountains needed to be to fit in with society and be popular in order to survive financially. They wanted the backing of the king or the, whoever was the warlord or whoever was in control. And so if they had this kind of energy, it was too frightening. And usually for most people, this process can be very challenging, very frightening. The reason why I believe I've been chosen to share this to the world, and I believe that is the case, is because we are at a crossroads. We are on the verge of either going into another dystopian Middle Ages, or we're on the verge of shifting to the next level of reality. And so there has to be a purification. There has to be an evolution of the psyche in order for us to handle what we all want. Everybody all wants the same thing. Everybody wants to go to heaven. This is what Jesus is about. They want to become woke. They want to experience ascension. They want to escape the matrix. It doesn't matter, what word or phrase or, symbology you use, everybody wants the same thing. They want to evolve to the next level. Nobody likes to work for anything. This is just part of being human. And so people don't want to go through the Dr. Manhattan experience. Let's get Dr. Manhattan in here. People don't want to go through the Dr. Manhattan experience because who the hell would? Nobody consciously wants to go through that death and resurrection. That's just normal, human, that's just a normal human thing. So, hang on, Dr. Manhattan. Dr. Manhattan wants to come and play. So we got to bring him up here past whatever the hell. Wherever the hell is that? Just a second. Here he is. Is that him? No. Yeah. All right. So Dr. Manhattan here didn't become this powerful Mao Shan sorcerer until he went through this experience. So this is the other reason why even in ancient times people didn't want to do the Mao Shan stuff, because nobody wants to go through that. And the Mao Shan were known, whether you accept it as real or not, I'm okay with it, but they're known for being able to die, literally be buried under the earth until their body begins to rot, and then they resurrect themselves. And when they resurrect themselves, they have all kinds of powers. Whether that's true or not, we could debate that. I don't care. But it's definitely true in terms of how this energy works. And so, but that's the goal. If you want that, then you have to go through and do the work here. You see me do, I would do this, what you see me doing here. I would do this for 2-3 hours a day. And I didn't have all of the tools that I give to you. All the tools that I give to you guys are there so that you can get your nervous system and your meridians prepared for this kind of power. In order to have that kind of power, you must first get the body prepared. In order to have that kind of power, you must have an empty ego. You must have an identity, but it must be empty. You must be willing to have your story that you tell yourself. You must be willing to have that story erased and rewritten. And it's a very frightening and also exhilarating and wonderful experience. In the past, the only guys that did this kind of stuff were people that were monks who lived in tiny shacks in the middle of the high mountains where there was all this ethereal mountain energy. And that was because having interactions with people and living in society, you have to live in a lower state. You have to operate from your reptilian brainstem. There's a reason why people, there's a reason why there's a push to get rid of money, for example. I mean, it's nonsense. Because there always has to be some form of energetic exchange. Money here in Australia, the thing I like about living in Australia is that the money doesn't feel real to me. It's made of plastic. It's not even made out of paper. It feels like monopoly money. So when I pull this out and I pay for something, I don't feel any loss, even though of course it is my money. Because this is just a symbol. It doesn't mean anything, but there has to be some exchange of energy or goods, or there's no economy. People won't function. The world won't function without some form of money. The only reason that we use this representation is because nobody wants to walk around with skins and milk and eggs. I mean, if we had real bartering, then every time you walked into a store to get something, if you wanted to get a loaf of bread and milk and eggs, then you would have to have something of equal value, an actual thing. So if you didn't have that, you would say, yeah, can I go sweep your, you'd have to do something. You'd have to go and clean the toilets or something like that before you could walk out with something. You're either giving your energy, your time, and so in order to make that all work, it's all symbolic. So we give people symbols. This represents an IOU from the Australian government. This is an IOU for $5, 5 Australian dollars, which I don't know what that means here. In the United States, that used to mean a certain amount of silver, which again is just a symbol. You can't eat silver, can't wipe your butt with it, you can't do anything with it. It's just symbol for something else. And all this goes back to, there has to be an exchange. So people who want to get rid of money are right in the wrong way. What they're hinting at is this: get rid of the false narrative of who you think you are. Because beneath all of that is the real you. This is the real Dr. Manhattan coming together, and now he's his truest self in the truest sense of the word. We see him as a god. But it just means that there's no false story about who he is that's preventing him from access to this lightning energy which is surrounding the soul. A lot of people want to live in a luxurious home. They want to surround themselves with luxurious things. This is symbolic. The soul is surrounded by the most powerful energy in the universe, which is what we experience as this fire element of lightning. This is the feminine. He's being surrounded by the feminine energy of the universe, which we experience as lightning. Did you know? So what's interesting to realize is that, did you know that the lightning gods, the male lightning gods, aren't lightning themselves? They hold lightning in their hands. Thor's hammer. The Indra's lightning bolt, or his Vajra. They hold the lightning, they control the lightning, but they themselves are not lightning. Because the lightning is the Shakti. It is the feminine power. And so it means that they have surrendered to the feminine within themselves. In the Norse tradition, you have the gods of fertility, Frey and Freja. This comes from the Proto-Indo-European pra and praja. Praja means the power of pra. Pra means expansion, creation. And so Frey and Freja are simultaneously husband and wife and brother and sister, because they are two sides of one being. That one being is the power of fertility. There's the feminine power and the masculine power. The masculine holds in his hand the power of the lightning, but he himself is not the lightning, which means that he has earned the right. He hasn't conquered the lightning. It means that he's surrendered to it, and he honors it and worships it, and the result of that is that lightning allows herself to be held by him, which is the ultimate in power. If you can get the power of the feminine to submit to you, it means that you have all the power. From the feminine's perspective, it means you don't seek to empower me at all. You don't seek to control me. You empower me, and as a result, I want you to hold me, to own me. So, in order to have that, especially men, in order to have that, you've got to die to your false ego attachment to the idea of owning and controlling and manipulating and conquering. You've got to get past that. This is why the guys who do the, whatever the hell that stuff is, whatever that's called, the guys that go around telling you how to score with women, and they tell you how to, they basically teach you how to find women who are insecure and then to capitalize on their insecurities so that you can sleep with them. It doesn't teach you how to have a relationship. You want to have a relationship with a woman, like a truly empowered woman, you're going to have to come at it from a completely different angle. And it's going to be they're going to choose you. You're not going to choose them. Anyway, we're getting off topic here. So those are some of my thoughts about the fire element and how we use it. I'm happy to take any questions if you have them. This is a question and answer. Welcome to my channel if you're new to it. In my chat, I'm only interested in your honest questions or your honest feelings. Everything else I will either delete, ignore, or you're setting yourself up to have me psychoanalyze you. And trust me, you don't want me to do that. So it's not your fault if you don't know any better, but now I've warned you, now you know better. So let's see here. There aren't any questions here. Caitlin Nielsen, welcome to my channel. That's not what we're talking about. If you're new to the channel, please give me the benefit of the doubt that I might actually know something. If you don't think I do, there's plenty of other channels, you won't hurt my feelings. But if I know something and there's something here that you can learn, it will serve you to put the time and effort to actually watch my videos, learn what it is that I teach. And when you can ask me a question based on what I teach, then I know that you will know what the subject matter is and what we're doing on this channel. If you don't, you're going to show me your ignorance, you're going to show me your disrespect for my classroom, and I'm going to have a negative response to that. So I'm just giving you a heads up. Your identity is not your family geology. It goes back to whoever, that doesn't mean anything. That's not your identity. Your identity is your emotional attachment to, much more deep than that. You are revealing to me, your training. You have just revealed to me that you don't have value in and of yourself. You've just revealed to me that that's true what you say, then you were brought up to believe that you don't have value simply because you exist. You have value based on, upholding that, whatever it is. And that's true. You have to get rid of that. That identity is not your true identity at all. That, if that's even true, that's just part of your avatar that your soul has taken on. And in order to evolve, you must get rid of the attachment that you have to that. The thing about these chats, they're set up this way. YouTube has set them up this way. And YouTube, YouTube is great because without YouTube, I wouldn't have a living. I'd have to do something else, and I don't want to do something else. So on the one hand, I really love YouTube for that reason. But YouTube is absolutely destroying people's ability to think critically, to operate authentically, to heal and to grow. It is actually creating infantile narcissists entitled for this, that, and these chats are here for people to, because their egos are attracted to the idea of me being able to give you my opinion. Oh, there's a chat. Oh, my opinion is this. And it's this narcissistic ego. This is why I tell people, I only want your honest questions and your honest feelings. Anything else, I'm going to have a negative reaction to. It's because you're being encouraged to tap into the most superficial aspects of your addictions to these feel-good chemicals that come to your brain every time I just heard my phone go off and I've got a text, all this disconnection. You're being programmed like Pavlov's dogs, just like I did. Even though as I'm taking that, I couldn't resist picking up and looking to see what the text was. You're being programmed, and the chat is one of those. That's why I tell people this is all I want from you, because what I want to do on this channel is I want to teach you how to interact with the universe that will actually help you evolve spiritually. It'll teach you how to interact. You're being taught to do the opposite, which is why YouTube is so popular, because it's an addiction. The feel-good hormones that come every time you watch a video or type your opinion in on a chat or something like that, is actually seeking to dumb you down, take you away from your authentic self. So that's why new people, you come on here, that's what happens. If you really want to get my attention, ask an honest question. And God Emperor's been on the channel. How long has he been on the channel? He still can't discipline himself to not put his 2 cents in. Barking like Pavlov's dog. Bark, bark, bark. What else? Opoku Ado, welcome to the channel. I'm not here to do anything to you or for you, but if you follow my directions, you can do it for yourself. That means doing the work. The work is, any one of these links, there's no shortage of work, but you got to do the work. FimSample CG, question. So he's following directions. He writes the word question in all caps, and then he writes me an honest question, which I assume he's asking me about something that I teach. He thinks I know the answer that he doesn't. We'll see if he's going to ask a good question or not. He says, question, I didn't do the lightning qigong yesterday, which is if you go to thunderwizard.com, click around for Warrior 90-day lightning qigong. That's what all of this here is all connected to. Everything I talked about today, when I talked about the power of the lightning qigong is, in my experience, the only practice, based on these guys here, the Mao Shan, the only practice that will tap you into the most powerful energy in the universe. It's more powerful than Qi, it's more powerful than Kundalini, which is why it's unknown. You have it residing in your heart center. You can flip the switches by certain movements, and it will flow through your whole body. This is what he's talking about. He says, I didn't do the lightning qigong yesterday. Should I start all over again? I mean, you missed one day, so you have to go all the way back to step 1? I don't think I ever said that, so no, you don't need to do that. I don't know why you're counting the days, unless if you're doing a ritual. So you can do, when I give you your Vedic mantra and ritual, I tell you what to do, and I will tell you to do it for 40 days. And I tell you to do it for 40 days because whenever you do a true shamanic ritual, it's a science, by the way. When you do some kind of a shamanic ritual, in my case, I give you a Vedic mantra, and I'll give you a specific direction to face and an offering. That will be based on your psychology and your physical body that is unique to you based on your Vedic astrological information, which is different from Western. When you do that, you are going to be tapping into your specific vibration that allows you to retrain your unconscious, which is the true story. So Caitlin Nielsen's my identity is, but that's not true. Her identity is what her unconscious programming is of herself. When you do a Vedic mantra that's been given by a qualified Vedic astrologer, they will give you a mantra that will create a resonance and a vibration within your unconscious that will help you to become conscious of your true identity, as opposed to the false identity that you've been programmed with by your upbringing and your family, etc., etc. So if you're doing a 40-day ritual, then once you're done, the reason why it's 40 days is because it takes a minimum of 40 days for the unconscious to let go of its attachments. It takes a minimum of 40 days. You can do rituals for longer than that and shorter than that, but 40 days, that's why, in mythology, you'll see 40 days. You see it in the Bible, that's taken from earlier mythologies. It's because it takes 40 days of discipline, 40 days of repetition before the unconscious will adopt a new identity for itself. So you're asking, I don't know why you're counting the days, unless you're doing a ritual. I don't know that okay, now I get it, because it says 90 days. All right. So, no, I mean, if you missed one day, that's okay. Just keep going. The idea is you take each session at a 90-day chunk. Obviously, if you only do it one day a week, it's not going to do anything for you. Well, I shouldn't say that. If you do it one day a week, it's going to have a lot less impact on you. The idea is to do it every day, and the idea is to do it every day for a minimum of 90 days. Truth is, if we were doing this traditionally, I wouldn't give you 90 days. I might give you 6 months. I might say, do this exercise every day, and I might decide 6 months later to give you the next thing. Since I'm not working with people one-on-one, I have to pick an arbitrary time limit, and 90 days is the minimum that I recommend that you need in order to get your nervous system and your body prepared for the lightning power. So no, you missed one day, you don't have to start over again. But you wouldn't be harming yourself if you did. I mean, the truth is, if you really want to be really serious about it, yeah, every day for 90 days. If you miss a day, go back and start over. But I'm not going to make you be that perfectionistic, but maybe I should. Maybe I should have said, yes, you have to start over. Because now you've got an excuse not to be ruthless with yourself. And you say, the reason why I'm asking is that I've been doing this exercise for more than a month, and yesterday was the only day where I didn't do any of the exercises, and it felt awkward. That's good. The reason why we do this every day, because the other thing you want to do in the battle against your unconscious resistance, bear in mind, the reason why this experience for Dr. Manhattan is not a pleasant one is because his unconscious mind has this idea of who he is. I'm this scientist, I wear a tie, I have glasses, my name is, John, whatever his name was. He has to die to that narrative of himself in order to have the RAM in his ego to handle the infinity that's coming to him. So his experience is he's being completely, totally destroyed and then put back together again, which is accurate. So in order to be able to tolerate that, the discipline of doing it every single day will get your hormones of your brain and your body connected to these practices. So when I was doing this, and I was doing it 2-3 hours a day every day, way back when, I became addicted, physically addicted to the endorphins and to the DMT. If we want to be honest about it, this practice will access the DMT in a healthy way, in a way that yeah. So when you do it every day, you become addicted to the flow of the DMT out of the pineal. And when you don't have it, you will feel like you're going through kind of withdrawals. It won't feel good. And you won't want to do it. You'll be lying there in bed going, I just want to go to sleep right now. And you go, I'll just do it and get it over with. And you'll get out of bed and you'll do your practice, and then you'll get filled with the energy, and the DMT will flow, and you'll feel better, and you'll be glad that you did it. And so this is another tool that the body uses to overcome the unconscious resistance. Which again, your unconscious thinks it's protecting you. It doesn't understand that when you get torn apart and put back together, you'll be happier and more powerful. It thinks you need to stay in your limited thing. It thinks you need to be wearing a little black tie and have glasses on and say, my name is so-and-so and my identity is my family genealogy. Your unconscious thinks it needs that. It's trying to help you. So the only way to overcome that is you have to have something that, discipline is one of those things. It creates new neural pathways in the brain, which overcome the old one. But those old neural pathways, it's like gravity. If you're not doing the discipline, your brain will slip back into those old neural pathways. So you're right in that it doesn't feel good to stop. That's a good thing. That means that it's doing its work. So listen to that. That's there for a reason. I'm very happy that I'm addicted to weightlifting. I'm very happy because at my age, I'm going to be 58 in a couple of months. At my age, literally, if you stop exercising, you get old. I've seen it. There are friends my age that are on all kinds of medication. They look like my fucking grandparents. They've got, So weightlifting has proven to be an actual. I mean, if you want the one physical thing to prevent old age and death, it's resistance training. It, whatever it does to the body and to the nerves and the tissues and all that, and it keeps everything going. It literally keeps you young. So I'm really grateful. But I mean, if I don't lift or surf, on a regular basis, if I go 2 or 3 days, my body, like my muscles, will start to twitch. Because they're starting to atrophy. It only takes a few days and they'll start to atrophy. And if I don't, and sometimes I'll be lying in bed and my leg will start to twitch and I'll go, fuck, I got to go to the gym. And I'll have to get up off my ass and go to the 24-hour gym and lift so that my body will be okay. These are all really good things. Discipline gives you this. This is why I tell people it's better to do 10 minutes of something every day than to do an hour of something, once and then give up and never do it again. So, discipline. Princess Tia question, do you post these live video lessons? Do I post them? Yeah, once they're live, then they're archived and they're on the channel. So, if you miss them, I mean, look at my channel, however many thousands of videos are on there. So I don't need to post them. When I do them live like this, they automatically are recorded and archived. See, I've been looking to find your most recent live lessons. They're packed with great info. Yeah, so you can just go onto my channel. If you want to know how to do that, you go onto YouTube, just type in Thunder Wizard, and you'll see my channel come up. And then you can go and find the videos, and they'll be in chronological order. So you can see the date of when I did something. So if you missed one yesterday, you just go find yesterday's date and you can watch it. So, yep, that's available for you. Sinleet question: are the element sounds the same for the warrior progression? So the element sounds, what he's talking about is. There's practice. I'm not the only one that teaches it, but what you will find is if you find online the 5 element sounds, it's actually the 6 healing sounds. There's a 6th sound in there. You will see people voicing the sounds. Wood, they will almost always assuredly do it. Wood, fire, earth, metal, water, and then the central channel. These are all sounds, and they'll tell you to voice them. That's actually inaccurate. Even Taoist masters who say the 5 healing sounds or the element sounds, they have it wrong. The elements are not sounds. They're breaths. The first guy who wrote them down was a guy named Tao Hong Jing, who was, of course, Mao Shan. He wrote them down, and they're not sounds, they're breaths. But it's just like the Hool breath. So for those of you who are new, we've got a couple of new people, Apoku and Caitlin Nielsen. I need you to go on anywhere on YouTube and type in this, Huul, and then breath. That will teach you this voiced breath technique that I'm sharing with you. So you do the 5 elements as voiceless breaths. And there's a specific way to do that. You do it, you don't, like for instance, the wood, or let's do the earth. The earth sound is okay, so you don't do that. You don't voice it. You know what that sound is. You then mentally make that sound, but physically you release the breath so slowly that you can breathe out your mouth and your nose at the same time. And that will immediately put you in a trance. It'll open up your third eye. You'll immediately go into a trance state. You do that with the 5 elements, no matter what. So the hool breath is an earth sound. It's almost identical. So if I were to do that, I would do it like this. Now, I only did a very small portion of it. You can already see the change on my face. I'm already really loopy and out there. This is how the 5 elements are supposed to be done, and I teach you how to do that. So your question is, are the element sounds the same for the warrior progression? I don't understand your question. Please do me a favor. Learn how to write full sentences and have context. That doesn't tell me anything. What do you mean the same? Are you asking me, are the element sounds the same whether you put it in wood, metal, fire, water, earth, or wood, fire, earth, metal, water? I mean, what do you think the answer to that question is? If I'm changing the progression, does it make sense that I'm going to change the earth sound from hu to ra patang again? So Sinli, I don't know you. You're not my apprentice. I haven't interacted with you. To my knowledge, I think you're working some of the things, but sometimes you ask questions that make me scratch my head. Maybe I think you overthink things. But, I mean, what is the obvious answer to that question? If I were to give you 2 element sound progressions, doesn't it make sense that I would say, and by the way, if you do it, if you change to the warrior progression, you have to change the sounds. Doesn't it make sense that I would do that? It makes me wonder the thought process you have. You asked another question a while back about the metal element, which I won't get into, which was a very strange question. And so it makes me wonder about you. I don't know you well enough to know what it is that makes you ask these really complicated, seemingly strange questions. So the short answer is, of course they're the same. Why would they be any different? All right, I don't see any other questions here, so yeah, I'll finish up and do the business. So thunderwizard.com, you see up at the top there, you can subscribe at any level you want. There are multiple levels to subscribe, and even at the base level of subscription, which is a monthly subscription, you can cancel any time you want. You will get access to my Shamanism Mastery course, which includes the 5 elements as well. So go to thunderwizard.com, click around and subscribe at whatever level you want. My goal is to get at least 1,000 people here at the Warrior 90-day Lightning Qigong level. When we have that, when I have enough people who are doing this and practicing this, then we're going to start doing live intentions ceremonies where we're going to get together live like we are now. Maybe we'll do it over YouTube, whatever. We'll get together and we will use this lightning power, and of course I will guide you through it, for all kinds of world-changing things, whatever that is. Greater awareness, end to hunger, ending of war, reversing global warming, all kinds of things. But I want to have enough army of people to be able to do that. Courses.thunderwizard.com has all of my books, all of my services, all of the things that you can learn from me, astrology, rune readings, all that stuff. And energyhealing.thunderwizard.com. If you want me to do my normal Dr. Manhattan routine that I do regularly, I will focus that energy towards you, if you'd like. And then, of course, if you want the elite, this is what we're doing here. If you want the elite practice of the Mao Shan, which is the fastest way to become a Dr. Manhattan, you can go to maoshan.thunderwizard.com, and we are going to be, I'm going to be uploading the fire element practice. And this is where things really start to get interesting. The power really, in my experience anyway, increases hugely when you start working with the fire. Flux Pavilion, 2 most important things in the world. 1, pay attention. 2, put effort. You didn't do either of those things. I see that you want to ask a question, but you're not following my request. I assume you've been on my channel before. You can see above you that there's 3 people asking a question a specific way. I want to see your question. You want me to answer your question? I have to see it. So this is practical, but here's why it annoys me. I get annoyed with people who don't operate from their own self-confidence to get what they want. Vast majority of people don't get what they want because they don't operate from their self-confidence. If you have self-confidence, you will have respect for yourself and you will have respect for everybody else. You won't be on either side. You will be able to demand from the universe what you need, and you will also be respectful to the universe and get it to respond to you. I tell you guys to ask a question a certain way, not just because I'm trying to be a controlling pain in the ass, because if I don't see your question, I can't help you. So why don't you have enough self-love to make sure that I see the question? I tell you how to do that. You write the word question in all caps, jam, and then I'll see your question. If you don't, and it's a busy day, I'll miss it. Flux Pavilion says, what are the side effects of lightning Qigong? So, pay attention and put effort. That means I have no shortage of videos about lightning Qigong. I have no shortage of information out there. If you want to put the time and effort to find out what it is, watch the videos. This shows me, everything you've just shown me shows me I don't know how old you are, but it looks like you're a 12-year-old. You don't have the discipline or the patience and the work effort to actually answer your own question. So I invite you to put the effort into researching it. And all of that information is here on this channel in more videos than I can count. Jam, question. Again, please write it in all caps. If I want to cultivate the energy quicker, I have a big thing about spelling and grammar. If you want to cultivate the energy more quickly, it's a better way to say that. Would fasting and cleansing my body help? So you're asking a question about something you haven't done yet. So are you doing it? Are you doing any of the Qigong, even the free Qigong that I have on the free YouTube channel? If you were doing it, if you had said, I've been doing the such and such breath or the such and such posture or the whatever it is for 2 weeks now, I'm really enjoying it. I want to know if I can get more benefits by fasting and cleansing my body. Why are you asking me this ancillary question if you haven't done it yet? It tells me a lot. I won't get into it, but it tells me a lot. Again, comes across as you're young. My first response, my first feeling is you're a teenager. You're impatient. You're entitled. You want things now. You want me to tell you things about the practice, and you haven't even started doing it yet. So when you walk into, and listen, it's nobody's fault. This is how things are. This is the modern times. This is the age of the internet. The age of the internet, YouTube, and everything else on the internet is designed to make you immature, lazy, entitled, selfish, narcissistic. It feeds on your narcissism and your immaturity. I'm not going to do that for you because I care about it. I would make a lot more money. I know how to become a billionaire. I know how to do that. I know exactly what to say on YouTube to get everybody to give me all their time and their energy and their money. That's not my job. My job is to help you evolve. So I'm going to tell you things you don't want to hear. And that's one of them. Don't bother asking me about the side effects of something you haven't even bothered to do yet. And don't ask me how to do it better. Imagine you walk into a karate studio and you haven't taken karate yet and you're seeing some guy doing a spinning back kick and breaking a board. And then you walk in the middle of the class and you walk up to the instructor and you say, hey, would I be able to do what he just did better if the teacher's going to be like, what the hell are you talking about? You haven't even learned to do a basic side kick yet. Go back to the beginning of the class and come talk to me later. In fact, don't talk to me, talk to that guy. You walk into a traditional Chinese master's studio. You walk in and you say, Sifu, I want to learn. Sifu doesn't give you an option to pick and choose what and how and this. He says, okay, good. Go stand in the corner on one leg. You say, for how long? He says, until I tell you to stop. And then he gets up and he leaves and he goes and he gets, some food and comes back. And he knows if you put your foot down. He can tell just by looking at you if you were standing in the posture while he was gone. If he can see that you put your foot down, he says, thank you, there's the door. He tells you to leave. It's not your fault. You guys don't know any better. But I'm not kidding around with this stuff. Talk to anybody who's done it. Go and read the comments. Anybody who's done this will tell you that the things that are happening are beyond what they could possibly imagine. So you're asking me, imagine a color that you've never seen before, or a colorblind person who's never seen the color teal. They've never seen the color teal. Try and explain the color teal to somebody that is colorblind. It's a waste of time. You can't ask a question about something you haven't experienced yet. What else? Flux Pavilion. Question again. What did I just say? Flux Pavilion. What did I castigated you for not having enough self-confidence to pay attention and follow directions. Pay attention and put effort. Right? Look at above you. All you have to look above you. There are people that are writing the word exactly the way that I want. Question in all caps. So you're either not paying attention or you're telling me to go fuck myself. Which one is it? Or both. Do you do Qigong in the rain? Not even going to bother answering that question. I'm only interested in your questions, Flux Pavilion, when you actually start doing the work. When you start doing the work, I'll start answering your questions. Until then, I have too much respect for you to take you down that path of nonsensical nothingness. You want my help? I'd love to help you. Follow directions. If you want what I have, you got to do what I do. It means follow my directions. Those people, this is going to sound egotistical, but it's true. The people who follow my directions to the letter, their life changes. It's not because I'm anything special. I'm only telling you to do what I had to do and what I have to do. if I want to heal, if I want to grow, if I want to evolve. And part of it is we all have to grow up. All of the problems in the world, every single one of them, can be boiled down to narcissistic immaturity. All of it. War, famine, global warming, political upheaval, medical problems, problems with, doesn't matter, political, personal, emotional, psychological, spiritual, physical, scientific. All of the problems we have can be boiled down to narcissistic immaturity. So the first thing that we need to do, that you are not being taught to do in the world, is we have to grow up. And this is why discipline is so important. And so, anyway, I'm doing my best. I'm actually doing everything in my power to give it to you guys with the least amount of hassle. You don't have to go through anywhere near the shit I had to go through. I sound like such an old fart. All old people talk like this, but it's true. You don't have to go through any of the shit I had to go through. I don't know that modern people could do it. I mean, obviously some people do, because we have Olympic athletes, and we have MMA, we have pro surfers, people who surf 60-foot waves. Some people can do it, but our society is not creating warriors. It's creating entitled, immature, lazy children. And entitled, immature, lazy children grow up to be QAnon adults who bring their mother to the Capitol when they seek to invoke treason. That's what you end up with. The immature, entitled, undisciplined, psychologically infantile people grow up to be QAnons. It's so symbolic to me. They bring their mom to storming the Capitol. It's just so, the symbolism is unavoidable. Livity Jim, question. What are your thoughts on semen retention during the 90-day challenge? I'm hesitating because that's actually not a horrible question, even though I personally don't like it. Let me just say this. Semen retention should only be done under proper supervision. All of the garbage that you see on YouTube about semen retention is meaningless. In some cases, when people are talking about semen retention, they're talking about not masturbating to porn, which is a totally different thing. Not masturbating to porn is important, especially for, more and more people nowadays are being so damaged by that. Their understanding of sexuality is being so destroyed and minimized that, the whole no-fap thing is a good idea for a lot of people. Because there are people that won't be able to have normal relationship sex unless they do something like that. Semen retention is, Livity Jim, I can tell you're new to my channel, right? So I'm assuming you're not even doing the 90-day challenge. But the semen retention is a practice done for the other Taoist practices. So there's two major ways that we can do Qigong to achieve whatever you want to call it. First one is Jeff McDuff, you reading my comment? First off, I don't read comments, but I don't even see your name up there. Pay attention to what I said earlier and I'll listen to you. Livity Jim, back to your question. All right, Jeff McDuff, you are now banned. Go somewhere else. You don't like what I'm saying? Get the fuck off my channel, go somewhere else. Let's say, good. Let's all wave goodbye to Jeff McDuff. He doesn't get to comment ever again. Bye-bye. Livity Jim, question. What are your thoughts on semen retention. So the two ways of doing semen retention are, one is to do Jing, Qi to Shen. The other way is to go Qi, Shi to Yi. We're doing the second one. So Flux Pavilion, please stop talking. You can't talk and listen at the same time. I'm answering your question. You want me to answer it? Oh, that's Livity Jim's question. All right, never mind. Flux Pavilion. No, my apologies, Livity Jim. Flux Pavilion was stepping in front of you. What are your thoughts on semen retention during the 90-day challenge? We do Qi to Shi to Yi, which means that semen retention is not mandatory. Semen retention is only mandatory if you're doing the lower level stuff. Having said that, if you're able to avoid sexual release during your practice, it will be helpful for you. But it should not be the focus. What you don't want is you don't want to be distracted, because the Shi, which is this, which is the lightning power, that has a direct connection to your sexual organs and your sexual energy, which means that you can build energy through this practice without having to go through all of the practice of semen retention. You don't have to do it. You can do it. I did it, and it was helpful for me, but it's not necessary. Flux Pavilion, you are absolutely, totally wrong. You are deluded. Semen retention did not make your penis grow. That did not happen. Anyway, it increased your focus. I believe that. But again, we're doing something different here. So hopefully I answered your question, Livity Jim. No other questions. We got rid of a troll. We sent him packing. We banished him off into the realm of the trolls so that Thor could come and scoop him up and banish him to the outer reaches of the universe. All right, I don't see any other questions here, so we're going to stop right there. I've done all of the, all the business I need to do. So, yeah, I'll see you guys when I see you. Take care of yourself. Be good to yourself, and stay safe. I'll see you guys next time.